Well, a very good evening to you. This is your primetime news bulletin coming to you live on MTV Sports. In our News First Centre, I'm Shahan Jurangpati.
And I'm Shanali De Silva.
First at 9.
I'm Alexander Holmes, and tonight on News First International Desk, President Barack Obama cancels bilateral talks with President Vladimir Putin.
Hello, I'm Nushrina Refadi. Tonight on the Tech Report, a stylist, but not just any ordinary stylist. Details coming up later.
News First at 9.
We'll have the story further on during the news bulletin, but in the meantime, let's take a look at the stories making headlines.
Headlines on News First at 9.
India requests the release of Indian fishermen in Sri Lankan custody. Magisterial inquiry into the unrest in Valiveria commences. 2 dead following a motor accident on the Southern Expressway. A university student begins a protest calling for media freedom. Who will be the next Chief Minister of the Northwestern Province?
Well, now for those stories in detail. The Trincomalee magistrate ordered for the 31 Indian fishermen who were arrested on the 30th of last month to be further remanded.
According to India's NDTV, 114 Indian fishermen are currently in the custody of Sri Lankan authorities.
Now, Indian media also reported that the Sri Lankan High Commissioner was summoned by the Indian authorities to discuss the matter.
Indian fishermen who violate the Sri Lankan maritime boundary have been arrested by local authorities on numerous occasions over the past few months. The most recent arrests were made on the 3rd of this month. Later that evening, another 20 Indian fishermen who entered Sri Lankan waters and were fishing in the seas of Talemana were arrested along with 5 fishing boats. They were remanded after being produced before courts. On the 30th of last month, the Sri Lankan Navy arrested 31 Indian fishermen along with 3 vessels. They too were remanded after being produced before court. The same group of fishermen were produced before court yesterday. However, as the Attorney General had not advised courts on the matter, Trincomalee Magistrate ULA Azza ordered the Indian fishermen to be remanded for another 14 days. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan High Commissioner to India, speaking in News First, said that he met with officials from the Indian Foreign Ministry and discussed the situation that has arisen in a backdrop where Indian fishermen in Sri Lankan custody have not been released. The Sri Lankan High Commissioner said that Indian fishermen should not violate Sri Lanka's maritime boundary if they want to avoid being arrested.
The situation is a result of large number of Indian fishermen fishing in Sri Lankan waters, in northern waters, and therefore, in the face of protest by Sri Lankan family fishermen, Sri Lankan authorities are compelled to take action to deter Indian fishermen from fishing in Sri Lankan waters. Sri Lankan fishermen are now protesting that their valuable fish catch as well as their fishing terrain has been destroyed by this large number of Indian fishermen fishing in our waters. So the issue is actually humanitarian for both sides, livelihood issue for both sides. Both countries are concerned about it. And of course, solution for this is that the Indian authorities must prevent Indian fishermen from fishing in Sri Lankan waters, and then they are taking action towards that. But in the meantime, the Sri Lankan authorities are compelled to take deterrent measures to prevent Indian fishermen from taking the fish catch of Sri Lankan northern fishermen, Sri Lankan Tamil fishermen, who have been deprived of their catch.
TESO in India staged demonstrations across the state of Tamil Nadu demanding the release of Indian fishermen in Sri Lankan custody. The demonstrators also called for the full implementation of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution and urged the Indian government to boycott the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that will take place in Sri Lanka later this year. The demonstration in Vallur Kottam, Chennai was led by DMK leader M. Karunanidhi. Treasurer of the DMK, M.K. Stalin, and leader of the Vidudalai Siruthaikal Party, Thol Thirumavalavan, took part in the protests held in other parts of the state. A group of fishermen from Rameswaram, India met with the Tamil Nadu State Minister of Fisheries to hold discussions regarding the fishermen. Meanwhile, the Hindu newspaper reports that this group of Indian fishermen are to visit Sri Lanka as a result of the discussions they had with Sri Lankan Minister of Economic Development Basil Rajapaksa on the 5th of July during his visit to India. The DMK and the ADMK on several previous occasions had addressed letters to the Indian Prime Minister urging the centre to force the Sri Lankan government to release the Indian fishermen in Sri Lankan custody. Recently, the Hindu newspaper reported that DMK leader M. Karunanidhi had requested the Indian central government to intervene and obtain a certain time period for Indian fishermen to engage in fishing activities in Sri Lankan waters. The Hindu also reported that the request was made on the 4th of this month when the DMK called on the Minister of State Affairs at the Indian Prime Minister's office, V. Narayanaswamy. A leader of the DMK was quoted as saying that the fishing resources in Indian waters are depleting.
A magisterial inquest commenced today at the Gampaha Magistrates Courts into the deaths of Akila Dinesh and Ravishan Pereira, both students who were killed during the unrest in Valley. Now, Gampaha Chief Magistrate Tikiri Jatilaka heads the magisterial inquest. The mother and grandmother of 17-year-old Akila Dinesh, who was killed in the shooting that occurred during the unrest in Valley, and the father of 19-year-old Ravishan Pereira, the other student who died in the unrest, arrived in court today. Police media spokesperson SP Buddhigasiri Wardana said that 5 persons gave evidence before courts today. He added that the mother of late Akila Dinesh, the individual who identified the lifeless body of Akila, the father of late Ravishan Pereira, the individual who identified the body of Ravishan Pereira, and a police officer provided evidence. The police media spokesperson said that further investigations were postponed to the 22nd of August. The final rites of the third person who died in the unrest in Valley took place today. The deceased was Nilantha Pushpakumara, resident from Udahen Tanna, Kampola. Following religious observances, the body of Pushpakumara was laid to rest at the family burial grounds in Koluwala, Kampola. The area was under police protection during the funeral. The 29-year-old Nilantha Pushpakumara, a father of one, was employed at a private factory in Valley. At the time of his demise, he was residing in a rented house in Valley. Meanwhile, a program organized by the Socialist Youth Organization was held opposite the Fort Railway Station today to raise awareness amongst the public, condemning the loss of lives during the unrest in Valley.
කතෝලික පූජකතුමෙක් මාටින් නිමලුව කියන කවියා කියපු කාරණයක් තියෙනවා. නාසි හමුදා ඇවිල්ලා කොමියුනිස්ට්වාදීන් ඝාතනය කරනකොට ඒ දිහා කවුරුත් බැලුවේ නැහැ. කවුරුත් හිතුවා මම කොමියුනිස්ට්කාරයෙක් නොවන නිසා මට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ කියලා.
Once the poet Martin Niemöller said, "No one cared when Nazis killed communists." Everyone thought, "I am not a communist, so why should I care?" Then the Nazis killed Democrats. Everyone thought, "I'm not a Democrat, so why should I care?" When they killed union members, the same thing happened. No one cared. Finally, when the Nazis' gun turned on oneself, there was nobody around. This is the situation here. Guns have entered Valveria. Tomorrow this could happen to you. Therefore, I'm telling you, as the poet said, what happens to someone else will happen to you. So we have to think as a community and face this together.
වෙන කෙනෙක්ට වෙනකන් බලන් වෙන කෙනෙක්ට වෙන දේ ඔබට එනවා අපට එනවා ඒ නිසා අපි ප්‍රජාවක් විදියට එකතු වෙලා අපේ අයිතිවාසිකම් වෙනුවෙන් සටන් කරමු.
Meanwhile, journalists raised questions from the General Secretary of the SLFP, Minister Maithripala Sirisena, about the unrest that occurred in Valley.
This assault on the people that was carried out by deploying the army was carried out based on whose wants? We have expressed our sadness over the deaths that were caused as well as the shooting that took place. Such an incident should not have taken place. The officers involved in the incident should have acted more intelligently. Investigations into the incident are underway. Committees have been appointed to look into the files at the port, the Kacheri and at Satosa. Are those committees' namesake only? I will also look into what happened to the reports of the investigation into the harbour and Kacheri fires. I will also inquire into what took place and why there is a delay. A committee was also appointed to look into the Valley incident. We have to look into it.
Why was the government unable to provide a solution to the problem before the unrest in Rathapaswala broke out?
You cannot say that the government did not come forward. The politicians in the district got involved and they facilitated the testing of water and soil samples from the area.
All these tests were done after the incident on the 6th. None of the government officials intervened until then.
No, that is not true. On numerous occasions, the media reports that heads of various institutions had engaged in talks with the public and sent teams to conduct tests.
මහජනයෙක්ව සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඒගොල්ලෝ එක්ක සාකච්ඡා කරනවා ඒ එක් කණ්ඩායම් ආයතනයේ පරිශ්‍රණ වලට යනවා ඒ ඔක්කොම සිද්ධ වුණා නෑ මාධ්‍ය වල පළ වුණානේ ඔව් දැන් ඒක පරිශ්‍රණයක් කරනවානේ.
An investigation is underway. Let us see whether such incidents occurred after the investigation. We are investigating as to what took place.
Will it become like the other committee reports?
Let us see.
Committees appointed to inquire into various incidents. Heist at the National Museum. Clashes at the Valikata prison. Fire at the Colombo Kacheri building. Deaths of fishermen who set out to sea. Killing of Roshan Chanaka. 3 deaths in the Valiveria unrest. For your attention.
Well, let's now take a look at the newspaper cartoon of the day.
On tonight's Words of Wisdom, we bring you the thoughts of the British musician and late Beatles member, the late John Lennon.
Living is easy with eyes closed. John Lennon, British musician.
Well, Fonterra brand Sri Lanka convened a media briefing in Colombo today to explain to the media and the public the current situation surrounding its products. Now, Leon Clement, the managing director of Fonterra brand Sri Lanka, spoke at the media briefing.
Fonterra takes matters of safety and quality extremely seriously. It's our top concern, and we're committed today to being absolutely open and transparent with you and the public of Sri Lanka about matters of food safety and quality. As you may know, the Ministry of Health has asked us to recall 2 batches of our products. There is a batch of Anchor full cream milk powder. Its batch number is 0605C0883. The second batch is a product of Anchor 1 Plus. It's a batch of Anchor 1 Plus. The batch number is 107610163. So we're going to be complying with this request, and we expect that it will be fully completed within the next 48 hours. There's widespread confusion amongst the public of Sri Lanka at the moment, and panic that all of our Anchor products are impacted by this withdrawal. And I really want to stress today that this directive is selected to a selected 2 batches of our products, and the remainder of our products are unaffected and are safe for consumption.